What's up, you guys? It's Lo, Beauty Demon, and I'm back to talk about more internet BS. But first, before I jump into the internet BS, there's a few things that I want to talk about here. First of all, hi, there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new subscribers. I got a lot of subscribers over the past week, so I am so incredibly shocked and grateful and excited and nervous and scared, and yeah. So thank you guys so much. My last video blew up. I was totally shocked. I had no idea that obviously something like that would happen, and I am eternally grateful. And thank you so much for subscribing and watching my videos. And I don't know what else to say, but thank you. I don't know if you heard my cat, but my cat said thank you too. The next thing I wanted to talk about was way back last week when I had less than 400 subscribers. I mentioned that I wanted to do a giveaway when I hit 500 subscribers. Well, I did that. So I want to do a giveaway, and I don't know what the giveaway is going to be yet. I'm thinking I'm going to do a gift card, so then you can do whatever you want with it. But I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, so I will post a whole separate video for that, so keep an eye out. Then I wanted to address two things from my last video. The first thing I wanted to address from my last video was I gave support to the official BLM organization, and I even linked them in my comments, and several people pointed out in my comments below that they actually donate their money to organizations that I don't think are appropriate for what I would want them to be doing with the money. So I did remove them from the pinned comment, and I'll have to go back through my other videos and remove them slowly. But I wanted to thank you to everybody who kind of pointed that out to me, because I guess I hadn't looked too much into it, and that's my fault. I did kind of just take it at face value. The other thing I wanted to address from my last video was the pronunciation of lolcow. I just hate saying the word lol, you guys. Now, I'm a little older than some people watching this video, maybe, so I was around before the phrase LOL or lol even existed in internet lexicon. So saying the word lol unironically is kind of difficult. So I didn't think it really mattered. A lot of people pointed it out. Some people said it was adorable, and I appreciate that. So yeah, I guess it was bound to happen. Perfect that it was the first video that like tens of thousands of people watched. And before we get into this, I just want to say everything in here is my opinions. I'm reading articles, we'll watch some clips, but everything is just my opinions, not fact. Please do not send any hate or negativity or anything like that to anybody. Any thoughts that you have from this video or about the situations I'm talking about, just leave it in the comments down below. We don't need to send any hate or anything to anybody else. They've already been dealing with enough in whatever situations they're dealing with. So let's jump into it. Okay, now that we got all of that housekeeping stuff out of the way, we can jump into what this video is really about. And this is about, it is about Gabbie Hanna, but this is also about how the Buzzfeed article was pretty much the catalyst for the entire ruin of Gabbie Hanna. So what I wanted to do was go over this article and then talk about a couple other things that came out. So this video, when I was first starting to do my research, the article came out. I wanted to go through and read it, highlight some key points, and kind of let that be that. So the article that came out in Buzzfeed is called "Why is Everybody So Mad at Gabbie Hanna?" And this article, I was already a little skeptical of it because I do recall that Gabby used to make videos for Buzzfeed. Like, she was kind of, I think they call it a fellow, where it's basically like your contract workers. You are your own creator, but you just make additional content for them. This person wrote an article. They said they did not know this person previously, even though they did work at Buzzfeed. I want to go over this article because I think it really highlights who she is at the core. And then I also want to go over a few things that came out as a result of it. The first two paragraphs are super telling to me, and it just rubbed me the wrong way right off the bat. So I'm going to tell you immediately, I'm going into this with a bias just based off of reading this. So it is, when I got to YouTuber Gabbie Hanna's $2.2 million Studio City home in Los Angeles last month, I rang the doorbell and was promptly told to let myself in. Doors open, her boyfriend told me through the intercom. Their two cats, sitting on a tall scratching post, barely lifted their heads, lifting me to walk through Hannah's home on my own, hoping to find her. She wasn't in the living room. She wasn't in one of the two recording studios in her home. I finally found her upstairs in her bedroom, getting her makeup done for our photo shoot. shoot, wearing cutoff jeans and a vintage queen t-shirt, while her publicist and makeup artist and photographer's assistant made a semicircle around her. Before I even go into the second paragraph, like that already just, I'm sorry, somebody is coming to your house to write an article about you to hopefully make you look good, and you can't even be bothered to have somebody actually open the door and greet them, welcome them into your home. Maybe that's just me, but I welcome everybody into my home, and I've never had anybody come over who's gonna be writing an article about me. Just the entitlement already just oozes out of this. The article goes on. We made awkward small talk for a few minutes before Hanna turned to us and said, okay, this is a question for the room. What's your most embarrassing moment? And even though she hadn't met any of us before, including her new publicist, who at no point during the day let me talk to Hanna alone, we answered. One told her about a recent blackout, another about an awkward interaction with a crush. And you, she asked me? I mean, come on, buy a girl a drink first. You know that journalist told her whatever the most embarrassing moment was. She wasn't gonna be in a room full of people and not tell her. There are some people that wouldn't do that. I like to think I would be strong enough to say, yeah, I'm not really comfortable sharing that, because what Gabbie Hanna is doing right here is trying to find out something that is very intimate and personal, and it's almost like she's holding it as leverage over them. Girl, I don't know you. You don't get to know that kind of stuff about me. That is very deep stuff that you have deep, long conversations about. Not, I'm your makeup artist and I just met you and I'm trying to write an article about you, but you want to have something that you can hold over me. This already just rubs me the wrong way, like so much. Okay, so then the article does just kind of go in to give you like an explanation of who Gabbie Hanna is, in case you don't know, in case you're lucky enough to not know, and just gives like a brief synopsis, which I felt like was kind of accurate. It described her channel as largely dormant. It says last month she lost 30,000 subscribers and her latest video has just under 244k views. And then it does say in the last month she's posted one video, which was her amazing cover of Alanis Morissette's You Ought to Know. We all know how I feel about that. Then it kind of goes into how she started to become considered more controversial and problematic. Then it starts to hone in on 2019, and this seems to be where the shitstorm of Gabbie Hanna and all of the stuff that is still playing out today started. This stuff started 2 years ago at this point. In 2019, Hanna allegedly told Trisha Paytas' then boyfriend Jason Nash that the fellow YouTuber had a STD. Paytas denied the accusation, Hanna apologized, and then in 2019 she became embroiled in her most serious controversy with Jessie Smiles, who accused her ex-boyfriend Curtis Lepore of her. Smiles filed charges in 2014, dropped them a month later when Lepore pleaded guilty to felony assault. And soon after, Hanna was labeled apologist by the public. Who didn't I apologize to? Hanna said. I gave Jessie Smiles an apology. I feel like I'm always ditching out apologies and I never received one, and that feels a little chaotic. I'm not really sure where she thinks she deserves an apology, but okay. She says she's always believed what Smiles has said about her ex-boyfriend. You have to really try to not give a fuck what people are saying if it's not true. Every time I put out a project, it's instantly completely shut down by people starting a new rumor that day. Am I gonna live like that forever? Or am I gonna do whatever the fuck I want because you're gonna hate me anyway? I don't understand the conclusion of that paragraph, because the entire paragraph is about Jessie and Curtis Lepore and the video that Jessie made calling Gabbie out and all of the allegations and why Gabbie was labeled a apologist, and that is her end statement to that. It has nothing to do with Jessie. And just like others, some of Hanna's apologies seem sincere and some really don't. Okay. But unlike her YouTuber peers, Hanna hasn't been able to bounce back after an apology video or time off social media, perhaps because a sizable chunk of her audience is absolutely not buying that she's sorry. She can't move forward because they won't let her. This pissed me off. This article called Jessie Smiles' alleged. It's not alleged. He pled guilty. He was charged with felony assault from the incident. It's not alleged. So they need to fix that right away. And then it goes into her whole background about how she was bullied for most of her life. And you know what? I feel like Gabbie probably was bullied in some way, shape, or form, because the amount of attention-seeking activity, because It screams desperate for somebody to like you. She admits to being a fucking asshole. I had a fucking neurological disorder that was unchecked. So once again, this article is allowing her even to use her mental health as an excuse for her shitty behavior. This part was also really fascinating. This was about her brush scandal. That was a really bad response. She said of her response to the makeup brush fiasco. Part of the problem was not having a good team at the time and not having a ton of life experience. I went from being a drunk college kid to having a lot of followers and a lot of responsibility, and I was so defensive because I'd already been getting made fun of because I was a meme. When you get a lot of hate, it's hard to sift out what's hate and what's valid. I needed to learn a lot. Needed to makes it sound like past tense. If you've learned something from that situation, I would like to know, because it doesn't seem that you got any positive life lessons from the brush fiasco. And the brush fiasco was you allowing a company to scam your fans. What's frustrating is that she's trying to have it both ways, to relish in being the most hated person online while being sensitive about it. That section really hit Gabby on the head. I feel like that's everybody's criticism. And then it starts bringing up even more people that she's been having issues with. Once again, dating back to 2019, they bring up Rachel Oates. Her latest fight, in fact, is with Rachel Oates, a UK-based YouTube book reviewer. Oates, who has 229,000 subscribers, is known for her scathing reviews of influencer books. In my last video, I really didn't know a lot about Rachel, so I didn't really want to speak a lot on it. And I still don't know a ton about her, but I did watch a couple videos, and she just doesn't do just book reviews. She has a lot of different videos on her channel. I was actually surprised, and I wouldn't call them scathing. I've read and seen scathing book reviews. She gives pretty constructive book reviews. Precise, and she's nitpicky, and she knows what she likes, but isn't that what you want in a book reviewer? So in what seemed like a rather shrewd attempt to keep the buzz going, Hanna sent Oates her second book. In response, Hanna went on a screed against Oates in her Instagram stories in April. She called Oates a narcissist, toxic, and many of the same words used against Hanna herself over the last few years. She's not a fucking artist. I don't care about her fucking opinion because she has no accomplishment in art. So then why in the fuck did you send her your book? If you don't think she has any valid voice in the artistic world, why did you send it to her to review? It's not making sense. Hanna's Instagram screed about Oates was made long after her review of Dandelion went live. I believe it was 5 months after. She claims this too was strategic. I never start drama to support stuff, but if there's drama, I will capitalize on that opportunity to promote something. I'm gonna take advantage of the moment. 5 months later, she said she's fine with criticism. She just wants it to be constructed. She's not fine with criticism. She can't even watch criticism of herself. Every time she flies off the handle, it's because, and she's admitted this, it's because of thumbnails and titles. So how would she even know if somebody's criticism was actually constructive? Then she said about Rachel, she's calling me some bitch on Instagram and having her dog write a poem. I wasn't able to find a source for Oates calling her a bitch, but Hanna did call her one on Instagram in April, which I also asked her about. She is a bitch, she said before laughing and turning to her publicist. Should I not have said that? Gabbie Hanna is publicly in a mainstream media platform calling another YouTube creator a bitch. Says she's using the villain role as a way to sell records. I might as well do whatever the fuck I want because guess what? The views are up. I don't think they're up. You're gonna listen to the fucking album because it's about the shit you guys want to hear about. If this album is more covers of Alanis Morisette, I want to burn it. You're gonna watch my series. You mean the one that you've been tweeting that you don't want to edit, you want to paint instead of editing, you want to paint instead of edit, and you've been talking about how much it sucks editing. I thought that was your passion project. You're gonna read my book, not by choice. You're gonna fucking obsess over every movie that I do. Does she do movies? I didn't know that. Her TikTok is mostly videos of her dancing. I don't want to be rude, but her TikTok honestly just gives me like 15-year-old theater kid vibes. And I was a 15-year-old theater kid, but she hasn't grown out of it, and it's really cringy and hard to watch. I finally feel like I'm in control. It's a lot easier to cope with people hating you when you're fanning the flames. So she feels like she's out of control, which I would totally agree with that statement. She seems like she's completely out of control. But this is just gaslighting. Then it goes into the stuff with rice gum, which I don't like rice gum. I'm not even gonna talk about it. But this paragraph kicked a lot off too. This kind of caucasic energy that once made Hanna fun to watch is now a liability for her. Imagine you had a friend 6 years ago who to this day is contacting your employers, contacting everyone you know, and trying to ruin your reputation, she told me, referring in part to Paytas. I lost sponsorships. I lost a record deal. I lost my friends. Hanna estimates that between 2019 2019 and 2020, she lost $5 million and $10 million in revenue between AdSense, sponsorship deals, and a record label contract with a company she did not wish to name. Lies. You were gonna make between $5 to $10 million in 1 year between 2019 and 2020. From what? And I don't think it's fair for her to be blaming anybody like Trisha Paytas or anybody else for her losing this shit. I'm just doing highlights. Imagine if you'd read this whole fucking article. Hanna doubts she'll ever return to YouTube full-time. Please don't. Now she's focusing on offline pursuits. She wants to move to Hawaii and start a company that sells candles and cards. I don't think I want to be an artist forever. I'm tired. You know, you can tell that she's tired. She's acting like a toddler who hasn't had her nap time and is throwing a tantrum. So that was the highlights of the article. And I will link the article down below if you want to read it in its entirety. While I was researching and reading this article though, a couple things came out. An interview came out with Rachel Oates. So before the Buzzfeed article came out, a channel called Black Wolf Company did a whole deep dive into the recent Gabbie Hanna drama, and it included bits of an interview that he did with Rachel Oates. Now, he only used a couple bits of the interview. Now, he only used a couple bits of the interview for like time purposes and things like that. Well, but when the BuzzFeed article dropped, I saw this community post, and it says, "Hello, with permission, I decided to release the extended version of the interview with Rachel Oates in light of the recent BuzzFeed article, just to give her story a platform to be told. It's pretty much uncut for the most part, with a few things trimmed or redacted due to privacy reasons. This may answer any questions that may have lingered regarding Rachel's situation." And I thought this was perfect because I was like, wow, actually I didn't really know a whole lot of what happened in that scenario per se. And the story she tells is a complete roller coaster of manipulation and gaslighting and harassment towards her. It was just kind of outrageous. So she goes on to explain that, you know, when she was younger, she was a fan of Gabbie's, and she found out that Gabbie Hanna had a book out, and she does book reviews on her channel, and she likes poetry. So it just kind of made sense. And I think that's where this all fell apart for Rachel, because you see, Gabby is unable to take professional critique and not make it a personal attack. I guess, I don't know, I don't think Gabby is able to differentiate between the two. Rachel described when she got Gabby's second book, Dandelion.
Her asking me to review Dandelion felt like a bit of a kick in the teeth, because like, she asked me to review it and she was making this big deal about how like, you know, it was better and it was improved and she'd done all this stuff. But then like everything in it, it was like she'd listened, like I'm not saying she did this, but I'm just saying it felt like if she'd listened to every criticism I gave her, she'd said, okay, well now I'm going to do the exact opposite. That's why like I was genuinely like upset in my review of Dandelion, because it felt like at that point, you know, she wasn't just an amateur who was in over her head. It almost felt like she was like, well, I know people don't like this, but I'm going to keep doing it anyway. When we're talking about like, you know, creating art for people who care about the art form, and then like you're crapping all over their love for it and handing it to them, it was a bit insulting.
I would highly recommend that interview. It's a great video. I will link it down below. But I mean, you see, as she goes through this story, it's just gaslighting. She's sending her book to provoke a response. She wants to like get under her skin and see how Rachel's gonna respond and react, so that way she can respond and react. Only does something to piss people off so she can get a rise out of them and somehow turn herself into the victim, I guess. And then she just incites all of her stans to do all of her dirty work in private on Discord and Patreons, and people like Rachel have to suffer the consequences of what? Of nothing. So I watched the Rachel Oates video. I thought, okay, I got some information and some things that I kind of want to take into play, and I'm gonna go back and I'm going to read the article again, see what I make of all this. And then, of course, as I start doing my research again, other stuff starts coming out. I'm going to dive into the Trisha Paytas thing first, because it has spanned a lot of aspects of their life and affected a lot of other people too. So I just want to dive into that first. The history between Gabby and Trisha is very deep. So Frenemies released their last podcast, apparently, called Talking About Gabbie Hanna, and it was a disaster for a few reasons that I'm not going to focus on today. Maybe in the future, we'll see. There was a fight about the business side of the podcast. I don't want to talk about that. That's still playing out online. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video about it because it's a lot. So out of the 3, I'm going to call them rebuttals. This was the only one that actually directly responded to things in the article, because in the podcast, Ethan pulls up the article and he and Trisha read through it and talk about it.
Gabbie and I met twice for like a couple minutes. Like, I don't know this girl.
It's clear to me that you guys are not friends.
But that's this whole thing is just her trying to say we're friends. Like, that's
I feel
her
like
thing.
she's just trying to fuck with you. It's like weird.
It's weird.
So she's blaming the collapse of her entire life on you.
Over me doing a video saying, Gabbie, I don't have herpes. You're a psycho. Leave me alone. Like, that's the video. That's all I said. Everything she is, she says, I'm obsessed with her. She says, I called her friend. The reason I made the video, every single person I hung out with, she would call them if she knew them and be like, does Trisha talk about me? What did Trisha, like,
There's a tweet from her saying specifically, Trisha isn't my friend.
When I was there in person, again, she was really nice at the beginning and it turned really scary. There was a point I just looked over. I remember Moses being like, let's leave. Because it just was like so off camera. She would stop the camera and say, let's take a break. And then she would just like trauma dumping, like bawl her eyes out and say, this person said this about me. Like, it was insane. And I sat there the whole time. So it's beyond trolling if she's going into private discords and like threatening lawsuits with children. And like,
she's very paranoid. She thinks people are out to get her.
You know what? I've dealt with paranoia myself and you can get medication for it. And the fact that she's not getting like treatment and just like harassing people, like that's what's so scary. And when it goes untreated, like it's the scariest shit. I just don't understand how no one's getting her help.
Now, Trisha does say before this article was written about Gabbie Hanna, this person actually came to Trisha's house, the same journalist from Buzzfeed, and did an article about them. And when they found out that they were also going to be doing an article about Gabby, they reached out to this person and exchanged emails saying they did not want to be involved or implicated or mentioned in this in any way or tied to Gabbie Hanna in any way, shape, or form. And they said the person complied with that, but apparently they did not, and it was very upsetting to Trisha. For the most part, the podcast didn't really say anything new. One little bit of information that I'm not sure if Peterman actually verbally speculated this, but I definitely speculated this because of things that he said. Trisha said that Shane Dawson is the one that told Gabby that Trisha had herpes. That was the most high school sentence I've ever said in my whole life. So then the episode ended with business drama and Trisha quit. Now, I'm not blaming Gabby for the fight. Obviously, that was about business. It didn't have anything to do with Gabby. But Trisha was very adamant that they did not want to talk about Gabby on the podcast because it gives Gabby what she wants. And they don't want to do that, but they ended up talking about her. And I think it was very triggering for Trisha to talk about it when this was kind of like their safe space. And now Gabby has invaded it. It probably made them feel a little bit overwhelmed. So now they're trying to have to process everything that they just went through with this article about Gabbie Hanna. And then they start to have this back and forth. And I think it just became too much for Trisha to handle the multiple overwhelming sensory things that were happening at once. So while I don't think that obviously Gabby is the reason that Frenemies is over, I do think that some of the behaviors have been so detrimental to Trisha's mental health that it is bleeding out into other things, because there's no way that Trisha can be fully 100% in a good mental state of mind when she's talking about the person who's been harassing her. Point is that this article shows that not only does Gabby not care about Trisha's boundaries, but neither does Buzzfeed. So then I'm seeing the Trisha Meltdown and it's still going on. But I decided to go back to the article. I'm not kidding. I barely had that article window open for just a couple minutes before I started seeing on Twitter, Jessi Smiles leaked a phone call. Now, I saved this segment of it for last, even though Jessi is talked about the most in this article. This video really shows us who Gabby is. Now, I'm not going to play the entire clip. I am going to play one clip. There's no coming back from this. There's not. So Jessi Smiles released an edited photo conversation that she had with Gabby. It is edited. I'm assuming it's probably edited because there's a lot of babble and ranting from Gabby and probably Jessi. And according to people who have talked to Gabby, like Peter Mon and other people, the girl just talks. So I'm sure it was probably like a 10-hour phone conversation. Now, the leaked phone call was actually tweeted into segments and it was broken down into little chapters. So it starts with Gabby trying to clarify statements that Jessi made in her original video. In Jessi's original video, she said that Gabby, I guess, only hung out with her just once. And Gabby decided that she needed to clarify that no, there were 3 separate times. There was a phone call, ran into him, and some other occasion. I don't know why she thought she needed to be like, no, it wasn't just one time. I saw him 3 times. I'm sorry, did Gabby think that was gonna make like the situation better or something? Jessie starts having a full-blown panic attack while Gabby is telling her the story about how she had to hear Curtis out to hear because she said, quote, she wanted to catch Curtis in a lie. And I call BS on that. She wanted to catch either Jessie or Curtis in a lie. So she probably wouldn't have cared because it would have given her something, some kind of little bit of information to have to vindicate her in some way, shape, or form later. It was manipulation tactic, pure and simple. Like, what sort of delusion does she think that that excuse is gonna work with somebody? And then chunks of the video do go over like tweets that went back and forth. I had a hard time following it because it was just a little much for me, and you can go watch it. Obviously, I'm going to link all that down below too. And then Gabby begins to give an excuse, not an apology. And then she rants for a couple minutes before she's able to try and turn the situation and make herself the victim of it. And then she has the fucking audacity to demand a public apology from Jessie. What the actual fuck is she on? How can you think that you are owed a public apology when you're the one that's fucking up? And Gabby says she'd rather involve the fans because those are the ones that are affected. No, your fans were not essayed by somebody who you later listened to them tell their side of the story. You listened to somebody recount how they somebody. That's disgusting. And then you try to justify it. That didn't happen to your fans. It happened to Jessie. And now you're demanding that Jessie give you a public apology because she outed your bullshit? Because you were continuing to spread lies about other people that were harming them? That was hurting Trisha Paytas' job. She's a sex worker. For you to spread rumors that she has genital herpes and that kind of stuff come out now, like that hurts her reputation. What type of delusions of grandeur do you have to even have going on to think like this? This is not, nor was it ever, your story to get involved with, to hear people out on. So you're not owed an apology. Your fans aren't owed an apology. Well, actually, no, your fans are owed an apology, but they're owed an apology from you, not Jessie. You're actually hurting people for real. She makes no sense.
Let's keep this offline and just sue me, and we'll see what happens in court. And then we don't have to bring our followers through this. We don't have to bring our fans through this. And we get to the bottom of what's been, hurting you. Just sue me, and then we won't have to bring our fans into this.
I'm more interested in bringing my fans into it because those are the ones who are affected. Keep going and sitting with these litigators, thinking about the idea of people saying how terrible I am for suing somebody with a child. What I want is for people to hear my side. I have no desire to take food out of your kid's mouth. I know that, your kid is in, speech classes. That shit's expensive. You're a mother. You're a family. I don't want to hurt you.
So I wanted to play that little clip right there because not only what she says, but the tone she says sounds like a straight up villain. That gave me chills. This is who Gabbie Hanna is. Who in their right mind thinks this is okay to talk to another person, that this is acceptable? So those were the 3 things that happened while I was trying to research this article, and I wanted to give my final thoughts because once again, we just see Gabbie Hanna has zero lack of respect for people's boundaries, for people's pronouns. Every one of these people have very specific boundaries that they had set up when she had the people in her house. She had zero respect for their boundaries, having just met them. She also thinks she's a master at projection. She takes every part of her terrible qualities and projects them on other people, but we all see right through a Gabby. You're not fooling anybody. I mean, I don't even feel like I need to give you examples of gaslighting. That is her entire MO. She even said in the article about fanning the flames, she enjoys it. Gabby seems to have some kind of delusion of grandeur that the entire world revolves around them. Like Trisha said, she's convinced that wherever she's not, people are talking about her. And then on top of having these weird delusions, she's also extremely insecure. She tries to project that she's really confident, but we see that she's insecure with the constant lashing out, the really cringy, desperate TikToks and Instagram posts. I think a huge chunk of this too is that she spent her second puberty, which is in your 20s, around really shitty people and really toxic environments doing really shitty toxic things. She came of age as an adult with the Vlog Squad. She was hanging out with those assholes. That's not really a great place to develop your brain and become a full-fledged functioning adult. I mean, look at David Dobrik. Gabbie Hanna is the same. She is the female David Dobrik. She's just not as nice, or she's not as good at faking being nice. Anyway, she has a complete lack of self-awareness, which I think is in large part due to the narcissistic tendencies she has, but that is also where these delusions come in. She thinks she's great, but she's also insecure, and it's sad because you can see it, but she makes it impossible for you to feel any sort of sympathy or empathy for her in any way, shape, or form. It's difficult to put yourself in Gabbie Hanna's shoes. It's unfortunate because we're really just watching a 30-year-old woman act like a 13-year-old girl who discovered weed for the first time and is now just going ham on social media claiming this is who she's always wanted to be. I don't buy it. There's something going on there. She's definitely struggling and nobody is around to help her, and it's really, really sad. But like I said, it's really hard to feel empathy or sympathy for her because she makes it so fucking difficult. I think what we're really seeing with Gabbie, and what this article highlighted too, is that she is lost. She doesn't know who she is at all. She has no idea because she's pushing herself in so many different directions. She's still trying to create content. She's making these TikToks. She's doing this. She wants to start a candle company. I think she needs to just like get off the internet and figure out who she is as a person because she's so used to sharing her life, but now she doesn't really know what her life is anymore. It's sad and it's pathetic, but like I said, I can't really have any empathy for her. Based on the stories that I highlighted today, it's very difficult to feel any kind of pain for her. Maybe she'll have some kind of story arc. I mean, we saw Trisha Paytas really come through and start to shine bright again, so who knows? Maybe this will happen for Gabbie, but I don't see it happening. I think this girl needs to go get some help, and it's really sad. So yeah, that's how Buzzfeed pretty much was the catalyst for completely ruining Gabbie Hanna's career. Not that it wasn't Gabbie's fault. I feel like if this article hadn't came out, all this other stuff wouldn't have come out either. So, and by the way, if you're wondering how Gabbie is handling all this, she's posting workout videos. She's doing really cringy sing-alongs in her shower. She's tweeting crappy paintings, not actually addressing anything. Must have fired that publicist already, huh? All right, you guys, that was it for today's video. If you liked it, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And once again, like I said, don't send anybody that I talked about in this any hate or negativity, and leave your comments down below if you have any kind of grievances you want to share. And I hope to see you next time. Laters. Bye. Bye.